We're live. We're live. We're live. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It with the Empowerment Duo. I am Lisa Santiago McNeill.
And I am Brian Keith McNeill, and I'm excited about this topic today. 'Tis the season, too. Graduations are happening. I want to talk about what do these folks need to know about life? What do graduates really need to know?
We're going to talk about it back in a moment.
Good morning. My name is Brian McNeill.
And I am Lisa Santiago McNeill.
And thank you for joining us on our show, Let's Talk About It. We come to each Monday through Friday right here on the SIBN network, on iHeartRadio, YouTube, TuneIn, as well as Facebook Live. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Like. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So what do your graduates really need to know?
Yeah, there's so many times, I catch myself thinking, man, these kids need to know the real. They need to know some stuff about what's important in life, what's not important in life, what life is really like, what does it mean to do this or that. And I'm hoping to have a very interactive talk with you guys today about what do we believe graduates really need to know. Now, a lot of us on this broadcast are not graduates now. We're over 40, we're over 50, So we have some thoughts, we have some ideas about what it is. And a lot of us, have gained some knowledge that we would love to share with the youth. We would love to share it with them. So what is it that you believe that graduates really need to know? We're going to talk about those things. I came to this talk today with some thoughts that I had about what they need to know. But I'm really curious about yours. What do you believe graduates really need to know?
Honestly, I believe that they'll figure it out.
Well, they'll figure it out, I believe, slows down the development of them.
I think that's an opinion.
Well, let me explain. That's why I said I believe. I prefaced it with I believe, because the whole premise of the Think and Grow Rich book was Andrew Carnegie had this epiphany. Why is it that every new generation has to figure it out on their own? Why is it that every new generation has to spend the first 50 years of their life bumping their heads, not knowing it? It would be wonderful if we had someone that could do a 20-year study of the most successful people and then come back with a guide so that next generations don't have to go through that. And that's where the birth of the book, Think and Grow Rich, came from. First came from the 12 laws of something. It was a 12-volume course, and they shrunk it down into one book. That concept right there. And also the fact to me that no one has ever achieved great levels of success in anything, not in business, not in sports, not in the arts, not in music, without coaching or mentoring. Coaching and mentoring. I can remember as late as 35 years of my life thinking, age 35, I wish my dad was around to talk to. I wish I had somebody I could talk to at age 35, and I didn't. So I do believe there's some life lessons that should be shared and not just up to figuring it out.
I think, while I don't disagree with that, my point does not take away from that. The point is whether you get the mentoring or the coaching or not, life will teach you, and you will figure it out. You will figure it out. The reason why I hold so firmly to that is because I personally do not enjoy shoulds and directions that indicate that there's only one way for something to be accomplished. And a lot of times when information is disseminated in such a way that either you do this or you'll fail. Either you'll do this or you won't succeed. And I don't believe that it's quite as black and white as that. I do believe that there are some things that could be eased from, just like anything else. If you walk in a path that's already laid, you have more surety that you can get to the destination. taking a road versus forging a path.
Good morning, Miss Vivian. How you doing? You know, Miss Vivian, as long as you've been on this earth, you've gained some wisdom. And some of that wisdom that you've gained, you may want to share. And today's topic is, what is that graduates really need to know about life? What kind of stuff would you think they would need to know? Wouldn't it be better if they had a guide or at least a direction? Now, Lisa's made a valid point, all that shoulding and all that kind of stuff. You should do that. I can see where she's coming from, but there are some shoulds that should be told. For example, it's a good idea to save money. Okay. If I had my life to live over again, when I first started bringing in income at age 17 in the U.S. Army, I would have started a practice of saving out of every sort. Every time I got paid, I would save some of it. Now, if I had developed that practice at age 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and kept it going through my whole life, that would probably have been a good idea. That is something that I should have done, and I wish I had known to do it.
That's one of those things that I actually disagree with. Not that there's anything wrong with saving, but I did. I started saving at 25, which is still considerably young. I started saving at 25, saving so much so that I was living my life based upon 50%, anywhere between 60% and 50% of what I was bringing in. I lived my lifestyle quite underneath what I could have afforded. And because I was preparing for my future, or so I thought. And then 20 years into that process, all the money that I had saved and all of the experiences that I had missed out on were uh, taken. They were just taken. My whole entire account was depleted of of 20 years of savings. Now, even that in and of itself taught me a lesson. It taught me, I think I learned more as a result of losing the savings than I had learned during the process of savings the savings. Now, again, that's not to say that either one is, I'm not saying that saving is wrong, but I'm saying that those experiences that I missed out on and those opportunities that I may not have afforded myself were a big price to pay for something that I, in essence, didn't get to utilize at all.
Oh, do you have regrets on saving because you could have spent some of that money on more vacations, for example? Okay, or you could have taken more trips if you had been not so steadfast in saving 50 to 60% of your income. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I'm saying that I could have enjoyed some experiences. I could have enjoyed some experiences. But even after that loss, I began to save again. I began to save again. And I saved again for another 12 or 13 years. And at that point, those savings I leveraged into entrepreneurship as opposed to, or at least I thought I was. I thought I was going to leverage those savings into entrepreneurship and be able to then live and retire on those funds. But what ended up happening in my direction from God, those funds were depleted. Those funds were intentionally depleted. And what I learned was that I could rebuild and create money without having money. Now, again, this is not saying don't save. This is not saying you should or you shouldn't save. This is actually saying that honestly, there are pros and cons to every lesson, every single thing that we could do, which is why I'm of the belief that some things have to be what's right for you, and that part of that maturing process is figuring it out. Figuring it out. That raised by chicken story is about allowing yourself to figure it out, because you don't necessarily know as a graduate whether or not you're a chicken or an eagle.
That's true. However, they just spent 12 years in school learning something. Okay.
Mhm.
Why would they do that? They didn't. No one asked them to figure out your ABCs. No one asked them to figure out multiplication.
Mhm.
Someone taught them multiplication. Someone
Mhm.
taught them the ABCs. Someone taught them about basic things of geography, of where things
Mhm.
are in the country. So the
Mhm.
whole concept of figure it out, I think, for example, I think it hurts a lot too. But Ms. Vivian says, absolutely, education and life experience are not to be compared with each other. They
Mhm.
both teach life experiences and education. They both teach, and they both teach wonderfully in their capacity and what they can do for you.
Mhm.
So what I'm thinking, the premise of this was a thought I had yesterday. I was watching some stuff, and I was talking about graduations, and I was thinking, man, what do these kids really need to know? What they really need to know. I got inspired enough to record a 6.5 minute video on what do I believe they need to know. Now that's just me and in my chair. Someone else in another chair, Lisa's chair, might believe something entirely different that they need to know. Okay. This Vivian says, I was a fresh know-it-all and no one could tell me nothing. Typical at that age. I was so wrong with 3 exclamation points. And if you think you know, you are wrong. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Absolutely. I agree. Because I honestly, I think that there is so much that is mishandled as far as education is concerned, formal education, and life experiences as well. I honestly believe that all of the education that we ever needed, and I mean formal education, ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, was done by the third grade. And everything else would have been better served if at that point we were allowed to discover where our interests were and discover where to apply our particular forms of genius.
Interesting you should say that. I put some thought to this before. Um, if I was to design it, does formal education need to take 12 grades? And I don't think it does. I think it can be done in 6 grades. Maybe even 5 grades. That's enough. Okay, and then you steer towards where your interests are, and stay in there. For example, if a child makes it through the 6th grade, for example, and he decides that he has an interest in the ministry. Okay, would he not have been better served spending the next 4 years of, instead of just generic high school, towards what he wants to do with his life, or at least what he thinks he wants to do with his life, until he decides to change direction? Or if he decides, I really have an interest in cars, I want to work on cars, would those high school years not have been better served? He spent 4 years learning about cars instead of generic basic stuff for the sake of getting a high school diploma. So I am all with the whole the way we educate in this country need to be totally flipped and radically changed. I wish there was a way we could do that. Yep. But are there not though? Even those of you like Miss Vivian and Lisa, even those of you who think that they should figure it out, they should figure it out. I do believe figure it out causes harm. Especially men. You're a man, figure it out. You're a man. Oh my gosh, what pressure that is. But even in the figure it out mindset, are there not anything that you think should be imparted to them upon graduation?
I think the tools that we need to impart upon graduation is less about do this and now do this, and more about the instilling of confidence.
Less
And
about do this and this, and more about instilling of
the
confidence.
instilling of confidence. Whatever you come up against, trust your instincts. Understand that you are more capable than you even realize. Teaching our children and reinforcing in them a very positive, you can do it energy, I think is going to serve them much better than any step by step plan or any list of things to make sure that you avoid or any of those types of things. Beverly says breathe after
After graduation, which
graduation.
makes all the sense in the world to me. Miss Vivian says, what's funny is that parents have usually gone through all that. We have gone through They tell us and we still won't listen. It's crazy behavior. You're right. Ms. Vivian also says, remember, a hard head makes for a soft behind, and life will spank your behind. Okay, if you have a hard head, I'm still having a challenge, and I still feel like I want to push back against this theory of let them figure it out and it's just instilling confidence in them. Because one of the things I think instills confidence in them is some knowledge. Once they know something, or once they believe they know something, they're much more confident in that area. There's a funny scene in the movie Zoolander where they tell him to break into the office and bring back the files. Okay. So he breaks into the office. He's on his little phone. I'm in the office. Where are the files? He goes, they're in the computer. Okay. So he goes to the computer. Now he doesn't understand computers. He doesn't know computers. They told him the file was in the computer. Okay. Okay. So he can't figure out how to turn it on. He can't figure out how to open it. So he ends up getting tools and taking the computer apart because he understands that the files that they need are in the computer. That's because he didn't have any knowledge of it. Okay. But if he had some basic knowledge of it, that wouldn't have been the case there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the transference of knowledge, but we also have to give the latitude to understand that while knowledge is communicable, while the what may be communicable, the how may not. If you've spent your life I know I use this example before, but if you, the one giving the advice, have spent your life in the area of technical repair, computers, and so on and so forth, but you are well versed in Betamaxes, then there is some knowledge that you can pass on, but it has to be sifted through the very specific lens of the new hardware and software that's out here in the world. And so sometimes we don't have the willingness when we share what we've gone through to give room for the fact that there are some things that are different now.
No doubt. Dr. Beverly says, chapter next. Remember that what you do is yours forever. How you live through it and respond in it is what you give yourself to work life, not life working, to work life and not life working you. That's right. That's right. What you do is yours forever. Okay. And even that last part there, just getting young people to the place where they can work life instead of life working you. Because I'm also of the opinion that if you don't work your life by some sort of a design, that life is going to just toss you back and forth, and you'll be privy to all the whims and winds of life. You'll get tossed around. That's what I think. Your income will be tossed around, your jobs will be tossed around, all that because you haven't taken the time to design something of your life. It's been said before, people spend way more time planning a party or vacation than they do in planning out their lives. Vivian Reed says, giving our children the confidence that was needed, then nothing could stop them.
That nothing could stop them. And knowing the things that might be against them would help tremendously.
Knowing that going in, there's going to be some things against you. That would help. It would not help?
Yeah.
Okay. So what say you? What do you believe? What do you believe that graduates really need to know about life? What do they need to know about life, in your opinion? I was thinking about it this morning. I talked to Lisa about it. And, I didn't want to just talk about they need to learn how to sell, although I do believe that's an important thing for them to learn. But I also think they need to learn some stuff about the importance of saving, the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. I think they need to learn some things about the value of insurances, at the young age. Those are some things I think they need to know. And that's just for me. Well, what say you? Is there anything that you believe they need to know, Lisa? Or, well, maybe that's need is not the right word for you. It'd be a good idea if they know.
That whatever comes their way, they can handle it. I think that was one of the biggest, the most life affirming lessons that I could have learned. It it is simply that no matter what happened in my life, no matter what loss, no matter what devastation, no matter what challenge, no matter what need, no matter what situation came, that I would be able to handle it.
Good morning, Sister Felicia. How you doing? Vivian Reed says, stand strong and hold on. Want to read Beverly?
Beverly says, it's beautiful how my son sent me a text message, Audie the 4th, I think that is. And he told me, Ma, you really don't know who you birth. And I said, oh, yes, son. Yes, I do. I know you're a king. And I just inspired him and motivated him and gave him everything he needed to do to push his next album into Memorial Day. And he made it happen.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that support is important. It is, I think support is a very, very critical component. I know that there are things that um, I probably would not have accomplished if I didn't have my my godmother, who would consistently reinforce, you can do it, you can do that, you can do anything you put your mind to, and would remind me that that there was greatness in me. And I think that there's nothing that was more important to me than that.
It's awesome that you had someone to encourage and to speak life into you. There's so many who don't. Fortunate is the one that does.
Which is why I feel like that's my role. That's the area that I get to fill. Because I think it is such a critical one.
As Vivian says, no matter what happens, you have the power to make life worth living. Dr. Beverly says, and my other son, Reggie, that's in the military, he calls me sometimes just so he can hear my voice and not just me. He calls me so the guys that he is in charge of hear my voice, and my motivation to them is to bring your behind home speech. Do what you got to do and bring your butt home. You have you do have an idea, but I'm telling you that is freaking important. I was in the military. A call like that and him willing to share it with his crew is important. It matters, just like letters matter. That phone call matters. Yes, yes, yes. It's a connection to the normalcy. It's a connection to home. It's a connection to mom. And there might be one soldier that heard you say, no matter, do what you got to do to bring your butt home, that don't have someone like you in their life. And what your son is allowing them to do is to borrow his source, his strength. Yeah, get a little of this, get you a little taste of this. Do what you got to do and bring your butt home. I think it's a wonderfully loving act by your son sharing you with his crew. Yep, I do. My foot fell asleep. It feels a little bit better now. I ain't had that happen in a long time. I'm like, what the heck happened here? So I had this an idea yesterday, what if I did a workshop, and I know it's not going to stick, but at least it will introduce these young people to some concepts for life. I know it won't stick, it's just like, but I think there's some value in introducing them to some thought patterns or some thought processes about their life, like the importance of one mother I spoke to yesterday said, if there was someone who could teach her son how to discover what his real passion is, because he doesn't really know what his real passion is, and she don't really know how to help him find his real passion. But why are you shaking your head?
Part of the reason why people can't find their real passion is because they don't understand what that even really means.
Well, she admits she doesn't. So.
Well, what I mean is, so often purpose and passion are defined by people outside of the purpose and or the passion.
Yes.
And so
you need to be a doctor.
Is your passion making you money, because if it is, then it's real, then it's a real purpose and it's a real passion. And oftentimes things that are, and that's not true. First of all, let me just clarify that that's not true. There are people that have purpose or passion in things that may seem abstract and or um, uh, ineffectual for real world stuff, if you put it in the parameters of what somebody else's opinion of real world stuff is. um I love to write poetry, and yeah, that's great, but what's your real job? I love to paint, yeah, that's great, but what's going to be your real job? I love to make music, I love to do music, yeah, that's great, but what's your real job? And so what often happens is the purpose or the passion gets relegated to, yeah, that's really nice, but now how are you going to provide for yourself and how are you going to provide for your family? To the point that we get so far removed from the purpose and the passion that we don't even come back to it until decades later, when we finally get to the place in our life where we don't have to listen to what somebody else said should be our purpose and our passion.
Good morning, Sister Melissa Price. How you doing? I heard you, Lisa. Dr. Beverly says, my girls, I give them the relationship speech and let them know what they choose is what they have. But if the thing that they choose keep them shaving off their value and their worth, then what they get is what they chose. And then I give them the professional motivation. Now how you act out there, it's going to show who you represent and what you've been taught and who you've been around. Where did it go?
So when everything you do or say, become the queen you are and build it better for your children.
Thank you. What? Sapphire Fletcher's in the hizzy. Grand rising, everyone. Good morning, Sapphire. Good morning, Melissa. We're talking about what is it that you believe that graduates should really know about life? What should they know? And it's been a very interesting dynamic this morning. What do you believe they should know? Lisa's more in the camp of giving them the confidence and the room to discover and figure it out on their own. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm more in the camp of I can hear that and it makes sense to me. Yes, but there's some basic principles that I believe they'd be better served if they were taught. If they were taught the value of saving money and investing early as they graduate. If they were taught that life can sometimes be mean and very often is mean, and life don't care about your feelings, and life will kick your butt if you don't act right. Okay.
That's a lesson I think personally that life teaches so early on that nobody has to teach that. That life teaches us that life is going to suck.
So even if that's true, that life is going to teach it anyway, no one has to teach it. With the person that's going through it, the young person, Miss Vivian's, I think Miss Vivian is the one that said it earlier. If they know it's coming, they'll be better prepared.
By the time they're 19, 20, 18, they've already experienced some of it, in my mind. So that's why I think the resiliency and the encouragement, I mean, it may be in different degrees. Obviously, no one has had the same first 20 years as somebody else. My first 20 years were devastating 20 years. So I learned a lot of life lessons in those first 20 years that might not be common. But it taught me a lot of things that may or may not have impeded or encouraged my growth and development. It taught me in some cases that I would have been better off not listening to some of the adults in my life.
Sure. Even in the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, the first scroll is talking about a lot of advice is given out by old men who nod wisely and speak stupidly. Okay, because even the wisdom that they had to give them was probably true when they were that age, but not today. Jacqueline E. Rozier, Sister Jacqueline, according to Jacqueline, Phoenix Morning Empowerment Duo. Both my children's grandmothers were school teachers. My mother homeschooled all her 16 grandchildren for years and prepared them all for life after graduation. Half of them are amazing entrepreneurs. I truly know it helps them for these times. Both of their voices in their heads has made all the difference in the world. Such an important conversation. Amen. Thank you for sharing that, actually. The fact that she raised so many children and so many of them became amazing entrepreneurs, that spoke to me that she at least had an accepting environment for entrepreneurship, or created an environment where people felt confident enough to do that. They can open the store.
Operating in their own skills, gifts, and talents.
Could be.
Yeah, I think that is an important and nurturing environment. But even understanding that there's also a place where um, even the most encouragement and the most direction and the most all of these things can still be something that the individual gets to push past. When I think about my decision to leave corporate America, every single elder in my entire life told me how ridiculous I was, because I was squandering all of the opportunities that have been given to me. And I was
tell me you're going to quit that good job.
Yes. And in their minds, it was a good job that I was lucky to have, because remember, I didn't have a high school graduation. I didn't have a high school diploma, and I was working in corporate America, and I had gotten by in their minds, and I was very successful in their minds, and deciding that that wasn't where that wasn't where God was leading me to be, that wasn't going to be where I was going to hang up my hat, if you will, retire, stay there, whatever. There was a lot of very intelligent, very well-intentioned people that I had to decide that I wasn't going to listen to. And what they didn't realize is some of the things that I had learned in life taught me that I could. It taught me that I could walk away. It taught me that I could decide to take a different path. It taught me that I could figure out a way to provide for myself outside of a 9 to 5 corporate first and the 15th paycheck.
Lisa Price says, I guess what I would want my girls to know after they graduate is this: even though you graduated, you will still always be my babies. You are loved unconditionally, whether you are near or far. Your dreams come true when you follow your heart, and you've got everything it takes to be happy and successful within yourself. That's right. What a wonderful lesson to impart on them. That you are loved no matter where you are. Ooh, that can get some people through a lot of sleepless nights, being reminded that even though this is all jacked up, I'm still loved. Whoa. Morning, Sister Leanne. What do you think, Sister Leanne? What was it that you would want graduates to know about life? What would you want them to know? What's Jacqueline talking about?
Jacqueline says, yes, Lisa, knowing their gifts and talents at a young age helped them push past the negative voices as they focused on their God-given abilities. Absolutely.
Beverly says, I agree with Lisa. Also, it's just some things you can't teach children, especially when they come into their own character and they have to deal with the bumps and bruises and of actually growing
through stuff. There's a time in my life when I had to take a step back and stay out of stuff because I can't fight their battles for them, and they have their own journey. I had to let them find their way.
Isn't that tough? It's tough for every parent, but I agree. There do come times when You have to step back and allow them to fight that battle. But it's so hard to do. Because you know you love them. You want them to be okay. You know, you do. So, but that does make sense to me, Dr. Beverly. Thank you. So what would you want them to know? Okay. I know there's some things that you can't teach, but is there anything that you believe you can teach? Is there anything that you believe should be taught? Are there any life lessons? I mean, come on, man. Well, through the centuries of generations, how do each generation know how to act? From the stories and the lessons of the elders and their parents, and then they pass it on to their children. They pass these things on to their children, and their children to their children. That's how it's done.
Yeah, but see, here's what I think often happens with those stories. The stories are important. The stories help to create the spirits of understanding that there are forces that are working with us and that ultimately we win if we use the story premise, right? The thing that happens a lot of times is we turn the stories into concrete facts that have to be played out a certain way, as opposed to an example of how things can be played out. And I think it is when we do that that we cause the limitation in growth and development, and the adding on, the allowing of the supply, where we talk about the scripture says every joint supplieth. Well, I think that in some cases as elders, we share the information in a way that there's no room to add to that supply.
Well, if they do leave room.
Well, then that would be good. That's what I'm saying. That would be the best way to share information. Here, this is not a blueprint. This is a template. A blueprint has to be followed exactly as it is. This is the blueprint. Go use this. A template is, here is a loose shaping of what has worked, but you can change this part and you can change that part and you can take this part out altogether. And when we share wisdom as a template versus as a blueprint, then we're allowing a couple of things to happen. We're allowing the person that we've shared that wisdom with to add their own wisdom to it.
Okay.
And we're also allowing them the latitude to decide whether or not this wisdom applies to them at all.
It's true too. I'm with that completely. What say you? Okay, we're talking about. Okay, so let me do it this way. You guys have all heard it 100 times, and we've heard it 100 times. We said it on the show a few times. The story about the young African boy who decides, after looking around, he decides that he wants to be rich in life. And he asks his dad, how do I become rich in life? He goes, I don't know. I don't have any money. He goes, why don't you ask the old man at the end of the village? And he asks somebody else. He says, I don't know. Ask the old man at the end of the village. So the boy goes to the old man. And I know you've heard this story. The boy goes to the elderly man and he says, old man, people say that you have the answers, that you're really smart. I want to be rich in life. Okay, what do I have to do to become rich? And the old man doesn't move a muscle, just sits right there. And the kid says, fool, did you not hear my question? I want to be rich. Tell me, what do I need to know so that I can become rich? The old man gets up off his chair, comes down off his steps, grabs the little boy by the hand and leads him through the jungle. Takes him out to the beach there and holding his hand the whole time, not saying a word. And the little boy is just having his hand pulled along by this older man, big older man. He pulls it, gets up to the beach, goes right up into the water, keeps going right into the water, not even slowing down. The water's at the kid's chest, the water's at the kid's head, and the old man takes a few more steps and the water is over the kid's head. The kid is underneath the water thrashing. The old man holds it for a moment or two, and then he takes the kid, turns him around, and walks him out of the water. Holds his hand again, takes him all the way back through the sand, through the beach, all the way back to his house. And when he gets to his house, he lets go of the kid's hand. And then he goes back up on his porch and sits down again. And the kid says, what was all of that? I ask you, what do I need to know to become rich? And the old man says, when you were in the water and that water was over your head, what did you want more than anything else? He says, you old fool, I wanted to breathe. He says, when you want to be rich that bad, as bad as you want to breathe, then you will know what you need to know in order to become rich. Now, I said that parable, and I know you guys have known that parable, but what if you were in the position of the old man and some young person came up to you and said that they wanted to have a successful life, or if they wanted their life to matter? What would you say to them? Would you walk them through the woods? Would you have some words for them? What would you say if you were that old man position? Dr. Beverly says, Lisa, you are my heels, girl. I call a blueprint instructions. I'll call a template experience. Good morning, Ro. Oh my gosh, Ro is here. Ro is here, baby. Rochelle Gray, what do you believe that graduates should really know about life at that very dynamic time of their life? Because this, you have to agree with me, that's a very dynamic time. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of decisions being made, and there's a lot of loose ground. You know, the time they graduate to the time they land somewhere, it's a very, very dynamic time. So what do you believe they should really know about life at that time? How about that way? What say you?
I'm thinking because I really don't know.
Well, if someone asks you point blank, what if a teenage girl asks you something? You would tell her, figure it out? No, you wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say figure it out. I say you will figure it out.
You will figure it out.
You will figure it out because honestly, my my opinion of what should and shouldn't be may not be for her path.
Well, let me relay an example of my life. And you've heard this example, and you might be giving me a new revelation to this. When I first went into sales at age 23, I was horrible at it for 8 months. I had a lot of pain. I was hurting. And the training was, you'll figure it out. Hang in there. That's all they kept telling me. Hang in there. You'll figure it out. People like you, Brian. You're going to be fine. You'll figure it out. But I had 8 months of pain. Now, a year later, I was a top dog. Okay. But I had that 8 months of pain until I discovered a book on sales. That's what turned the corner for me. I discovered a book on sales, started reading about it and reading another and another. But that's what did it for me, just reading about how to do this thing. But other than that, they were willing to let me stay in pain.
Well, they were not willing to let you stay in pain. They were willing to let you see whether or not you were willing to be in pain for something.
They wouldn't let me quit either. I was trying to quit several times.
They couldn't keep you from quitting.
They kept talking me out of it, is what it was. Rochelle says, I'd say character will take you where talent won't. Take your gift and become an entrepreneur. Woo! Woo! Character will take you where talent won't. Character. Basic stuff. Manners, integrity, doing the right thing, character. And take your gift to become an entrepreneur. That's what she would say. Thank you, Ro, for that. So that painful time in my life, you're causing me to re-examine it a little bit. Okay. Maybe I became a rock star because I had those 8 months of hell, and it was hell. My confidence was battered. My self-confidence was battered. I was embarrassed about the size of my paycheck. I was really embarrassed about it. I was sitting next to people making 4 and 5 times what I was making. And they weren't good people. So it was terrible for me.
I think that each and every one of us has a journey to take. And I have seen so many things that start out either obscurely or in a derogatory way that end up evolving into a magnificent level of greatness. That I think what you need to know after graduation is that you can do it whatever that it is. I mean, there has been situations where I've had to minister and mentor to women that were actively streetwalkers, that girls that were actively promiscuous or pole dancing and all of these things. And there could have been judgments that were placed on those situations. There could have been, you're better than this, you don't need to be doing this or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that was a part of their journey, that if they had not had that leg of their journey, they would not have become some of the women that they are right now today, 20 years later.
And a lot of those women 20 years later are high character women now, accomplished.
Well, yes, they're accomplished. They have overcome some things. Leanne said, I will want them to know that they can. Yes. Do or become whatever they want in their life. No one teaches children that their own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are very powerful. They are taught so many of the laws of the universe in school: the law of gravity, the law of inertia, the law of gestation, the law of aviation, the laws governing the orbiting of the planets, etc. But they are not taught the law of energy, the law of vibration, the law of frequency, then the law of attraction. That
could allow them to realize they can actually have more control over what happens to and for them in their lives than anything else. How wonderfully well said. You're right, Leanne. They do teach all these other laws.
And that's
but they don't teach the laws of energy and attraction and frequency. What?
But they also don't teach enough of the laws of acceptance. And I think that some of the challenges that the next generation faces is that they have the challenges that the older generation faces when in connection to the younger generation, is that they are often, good morning, Bill, they are often caught up in what is or was acceptable during their time. And they can't see beyond the differences of what is now. I don't know what that says.
Turn the book around, baby. Can you read it out?
No.
Did you say Bill was here?
Yes. Happy today. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Bill. How you doing? So, Bill, what would you say? We've had some amazing contributions so far today. What is it that you believe graduates should really know about life? Jacqueline, I can't read that from here.
She says, in 1988, my husband and I had a decision to make. One grandmother wanted to keep them in tradition. She was the stick to what already works, and the other grandmother wanted to expose my children to the workings of the world. She was the you'll figure it out person, and they both had their points. However, we chose you'll figure it out, and now it has helped them to develop great survival skills. And I think that there was a combination of the two that probably allowed everything to work together, that up to the point where they were exposed to the very specific blueprint and then given the opportunity to then have a template, there was some growth in that. So again, use the blueprint, use the blueprint template analogy again. If you have a blueprint, you will always create exactly what was there. That was it. A blueprint is the instructions to create this.
That house, that bridge.
This house, this bridge, this building, this, whatever it is, that's all a blueprint can do. However, a template, honestly, is open to possibilities, interpretations, and sometimes a template ends up just being the idea starter. The template, it actually just begins to be the thing that starts the conversation, and you make it smaller and you make it bigger and you add flashes over here, and you know what? It's square, but you know what? I'm going to erase that because I want mine to be round and I want it to be 5 levels instead of 2 levels, and whatever the case is. And I think exposing the blueprint, meaning that here's how I'm going to give you some success. I'm going to show you A plus B equals C. And if you do A plus B equals C over and over again, you are going to always get C. That will build confidence. That's the 1st through the 3rd grade. That is what is important, is to learn that these things come and they fit together.
Okay.
But then once you get past the understanding of how things work, now it's time to break some stuff. Now it's time to start putting things together differently so that you can see what could be, what may be, and what's possible. And by equipping people, I don't just say children, because I equip women with that. First, you see how it's done, and now you decide how you want to do it. I'm not making copycat coaches. I am allowing coaches to copy what they want, and whatever they don't want, they can leave it out.
So I agree with you guys. All of you guys are similar to, but I'm still opposite a little bit. But you're moving me toward your way of thinking, because I really believe that there's some principles that should be taught to graduates about what life is like the importance of saving, the importance of investing, all those kinds of things. Dr. Beverly says, I think mine became survivors earlier because I became a parent. That struggle for them was as real as it was for me. There were days when I tried to pretend that we were not underwater or that we were not in the forest, but I learned how to take what was in the forest and use what I need, and learned how to take a deep breath because I knew when the water was coming.
Absolutely.
Leanne says, oops, mistyped my comment. No one can have, do, or become what they want. We got you. And William Brown, wow, I just got that. Many times I have used a template as if it is a blueprint.
Absolutely. And a template is a starting point. Every single element in a template can be changed. Every single thing. You can change the colors, you can change the shapes, you can change the size, you can change the number of pages. You can change everything about a template.
I must come across as the pedantic old grandpa right now, because I don't believe you can change everything in a template.
Then you just don't know how to use a template.
For example, when I teach people how to tell their story, okay, and I do a whole page on it, like what business they're really in, that you know how, well, what I do so that they can, and then I tell them that their money's in their story, and then that fit before fee. And I tell them after we do all of that stuff, I say, now this is a track to run on. This is not a canned pitch. You know, you can change how you say it and whatever, but there are certain things I believe work best in order. Okay, so for example, you start off with the problem you solve. You don't end with the problem you solve. You start off with the problem you solve, and you end with the benefits. And if you felt free to change everything about it, well, I'll just do the benefits up front, and I won't even tell them about this. That's not how it works.
Well, that's because it's not a template. It's a blueprint. It's a blueprint. It is, how can I explain the difference?
How can I explain the Hellmania? Go ahead.
A blueprint is
what you say. I know the difference.
The difference is yours is a fill in the blanks. And that means it's already set and established. These are the only things that can change. That's not a template. That's a blueprint. These are the only things that change. Just like if you, we go to Caribbean Life, right? And they have those options where you can choose these houses and have it built to your own desire. That's not completely true. There is a blueprint. This house can only be a 3-bedroom house because only 3-bedroom houses can go on this lot. Can you change the floors? Yes. Can you change the bathroom fixtures? Yes. But you have to go along with this blueprint or that blueprint, and then you can make modifications to some of the things that are not going to change the foundational structure of this blueprint. That is what the story is. The story is a blueprint. It is a blueprint. Beverly says, graduates, get the book, Process the Woods. Let the waters carry you the rest of the way.
Is there an actual book called Process the Woods? Okay, cool. Wynn Brown. Brian, I think that is your genius. You have a blueprint with a template within. Probably, and also, Bill, it's a product of years of trial, drill, and rehearse. Years of practice, drill, and rehearse. Years of tinkering with it to get to this place.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Jacqueline.
She says, OMG, write the book, Lisa.
See, even that right there. OMG, write the book, Lisa. I came to this talk today thinking that there's some stuff that I want to say, here, graduates, learn this, or give them in a talk or a workshop. But you guys are not feeling that.
It definitely feels like a book Melissa can write. Absolutely. 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 I definitely agree.
Miss Vivian, thanks for stopping through. We got to get out of here too. It's 9:55. Oh my gosh.
That's right.
I didn't even realize.
Time to tune in to Coffee Time with Coach Ja. We're grateful that you decided to share a part of your morning with us this morning and to help us to be inspired. Now that you have been thinking about what you could share with a graduate, why don't you look at the graduate in yourself and begin to uplift, inspire, encourage, and nurture your personal purpose so that you can go forth and change the world. We love you. Have an amazing day. And don't forget to have sex.